Today on Locked On Rockies, they face a conundrum, the Kris Bryant conundrum.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock On Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 17th day of May in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day is talk Rockies baseball, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can let me know what's on your mind. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes in the Locked On Rockies YouTube section, comment section. Let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. Thank you again so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on all those streaming services. And in the comments section here, S40 says, S40 GD says, any team is capable of getting hot. You Rockies fans buying into this? And that's actually a good question. That's actually a good little way to kind of set the stage for the Rockies conversation today, because apparently the return is here. Kris Bryant is making his return this weekend, and that's what they're saying, at least here. I haven't seen anything official, but that does seem to be the plan, as he has been rehabbing there in Albuquerque, getting ready to go. And reports are saying that he is on pace to be joining them. But we're gonna dive into that, because the question of are you buying into them is it's still the main question, because what does that definition mean? Just because the Rockies win seven in a row, they go on a hot streak, everything, things are looking good. What is it? Is it just the hot streak? I mean, how much can you complete? Does that hot streak negate the slow start? Those type of questions matter. And when, you know what, we'll dive into that here after I just let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So I guess that is my question to you, the fan listening today. How much have you bought into this? I'm more bought into the fact that this team is better than what it was. This team is a bad team. Overall, this team, not a playoff caliber team. And we discussed that. But when I talked about the ceiling for the Rockies, I said mid-70s as the absolute highest possible ceiling if everything was going great. Kris Bryant came back. Injuries weren't a problem. Well, guess what? Injuries, a big problem for the Colorado Rockies, and just poor baseball as well. So 70s, I mean, even 70, I think, is a stretch here at this point in the season. But what we can take away from last week is I am buying into Brenton Doyle is better this year. I am buying into Ryan McMahon is looking the best, is playing and looking some of the best that he's ever looked in his life. I am buying into that Brendan Rodgers is still talented, but the cold starts is something that is definitely a real deal thing. I am buying into the Ezequiel Tovar is taking steps forward and is looking like another great shortstop of the future. I'm not buying some of the other stuff. I'm not buying the Rockies' over-reliance on veteran players at the expense of young guys. The one thing that you ride the momentum, and he made key plays. But I'm just saying, if it's different when you're on a 7-game winning streak. It's different when you're experiencing a thing that's changing, that finally the good times are rolling for the Rockies, and you got to stick with it. But say the Rockies can start going back and forth and kind of be a more normal team, maybe losing more series than winning, but competitive, winning some series here and there, and just kind of being a mid-60s win baseball team. I'm not buying in the lineups with Stallings and Caves, and I know he's not in there, and Diaz. I'm not buying into lineups with Blackmon and Bryant and Stallings and Diaz and Cave in them, which very well could happen. That's the type of stuff as this season goes on, I'm not going to be into, because eventually you have to make the decision. And that's what's looming for the Rockies right now. How are you going to handle the return of Kris Bryant? Because at some point you really have to have the tough conversations with those young guys. And because of that, you're going to drastically impact their development and their progress this year. There are now, with Kris Bryant coming back and with Kris Bryant being most likely going to be inserted, and I'm not saying this against his thing. Until Bryant proves his health, he should not be playing every day. He should not. He should play 4 days a week. He should have multiple days off during the week, and he should only DH. I truly think if he can't play and stay healthy enough to play defense, then he needs to just DH, and he only needs to do it 4 days a week. I mean, at this point, it's about making sure that Kris Bryant can finish the season without another IL stint and be someone that can contribute instead of, doing too much. I don't even think that first base makes sense right now for Kris Bryant. Kris Bryant's return coming back means that these players are impacted. Michael Toglia, Hunter Goodman, Jordan Beck, Sean Bouchard. I mean, all of these guys, all of them that have been playing right, and Nolan Jones's return double impacts all of that. It compounds all of those impacts there for those guys, giving them even less time. And Goodman and Bouchard weren't even getting playing time with Cave in the lineup. Kris Bryant has to prove it. I appreciate we got the more insight there. If you haven't read the Patrick Saunders piece over in the Denver Post, you can get a good inside look of how frustrating it is for Kris Bryant right now. And I agree, but I relate to that. I think there's a key spot in there where I think I was reading actually that there's another piece on Purple Road discussing how Kris Bryant fits into this, and it's not the frustration laying just with Kris Bryant because of his body not working with him he's more frustrated than us. But it's again that evaluation from the top. Can they have the same can they have the same type of discipline now with the return of Kris Bryant to actually only use him as needed? Or are they going to have to make sure that they're putting him and forcing him into the lineup and hope that he hits his way out of this and gets himself back on track and proves to himself and Rockies fans that he still got it? He tells the Denver Post he still got it. Unfortunately, the advanced numbers and everything don't paint that picture. So the Rockies have to make sure that this situation that they've put themselves in is such a hard one to win right now. Because if you don't play Kris Bryant, you're not playing your big name all-star guy this guy. Well, let me go get the Purple Rose stat here. Let's see. Man, I just had it. It's up at the top. Where was it? The set I'm trying to find is, here we go. While injuries hit all team, the Rockies aren't acing the physical part of the 2024 season, and that's not even considering the player who earns 19% of Colorado's almost $147 million payroll, Kris Bryant. I mean, you have to play him. Like that. That's the thing. They're gonna find space for him, and they want to find space for the name. But how long until that's a detriment? It does the prospects no good to come up to the Rockies and sit on the bench and do nothing. But with the return of Kris Bryant, who's been gone for almost a month. Remember, we were told that injury was not a big deal. Little tweak, little this. It's been a month. If he can't stay healthy, then he can't stay on the field. And eventually, if you go on another run like this, because this winning streak can end at any time. I mean, if you're asking for the perfect storm of how this thing's going to end, the Kris Bryant return in the road series at San Francisco, that throws a lot of what ifs into what's going on there. But does he have the abilities to still turn it around? I mean, he's got to show us. There has not been a stretch really in his Rockies tenure where you feel confident in his abilities to do things. I mean, he doesn't even have enough registered numbers on StatCast as a Rocky for him to actually get the little bubbles, for him to get the little things that actually, can have him rank amongst other batters. He's not even qualified in terms of StatCast. He's only got 55 plate appearances so far this season. So with Kris Bryant, I need to see it. Not only do I need to see him on the field, but I need to see it. I at this point, there are other young guys that are doing everything in their power, and Jake Cave, to force their way onto the field. And the Rockies just can't simply allow themselves to trot out Kris Bryant every day of the week for him to just roll over into the infield. You have to give him time to bounce back, absolutely. But from what we've seen on the field, the question marks are still there. And I don't necessarily believe I'm confident in the Rockies for making the call for lowering the playing time. I mean, Charlie Blackmon's been out of the lineup a little bit more often than we thought lately. That's happened. But I don't think Bill Schmidt and Dick Monfort are going to allow Kris Bryant to spend very much time not on the field. And that is going to impact 4 players at minimum. 4 players that, while they've had their struggles, their ups and downs, they've also flashed moments. Are you going to send Beck down after being the first player in eons or whatever to bat from the 9th hole and score 5 RBI? Who gets sent down? And how long does it take for them to come back up? When do you actually make the tough call here? I mean, it's going to happen sooner rather than later. Maybe it comes closer to the trade deadline. But eventually the call is going to have to be made. Who is the bigger priority? What is the bigger priority for the Colorado Rockies? Getting their young guys their at-bats and their opportunities and building them up for the future, or making the Kris Bryant situation work? Right now, I don't see a path where both of those work. Because if Kris Bryant plays well, then, well, he's Kris Bryant. He's going to play every day. And that means we don't see anything from these young guys. But if Kris Bryant struggles, I still am not confident that the Rockies take him out of the lineup consistently. With his health concerns, with his performance concerns, I don't think Kris Bryant should play every day right now. Maybe he has got to play every day in order to build himself back up. Maybe that's what I understand that consistency is key. But Kris Bryant's Rockies tenure has given me no confidence in him to stay on the field long enough to straighten things out. And just like we've talked about, the Rockies organization has not done a good job of putting Kris Bryant in a place to succeed. How are they going to help him as well? We're going to continue our conversation here about the Kris Bryant conundrum and go back to, I think, that question of, are we buying into this from the comment section there? Because again, I think that while it's a question I think was posed with a slight bit of a jab, I think it's a reminder to sit there during this winning streak and think about that question. We'll also talk about confidence as well, how that relates to Kris Bryant and all that good stuff coming up in today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Supply House. Hey, you're probably out there. Maybe you listen to this podcast while you're on the work site. Maybe you listen to this podcast while you're driving around, heading to go take care of some plumbing, some electrical, whatever you might need. Well, supplies that are made for you, the people that do the hard work, well, they are available at supplyhouse.com. It's the site that's made for skilled trades. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business. business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trade can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Paul Holden, Rockies fan extraordinaire. Hey, want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day and want to remind you that you can catch all your Rockies play-by-play action all season long on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. Just search Colorado Rockies, and you are good to go. So we're talking about Kris Bryant's return. Like I said, I don't think anything's official. I haven't seen any official moves. I should probably do a little morning scrolling on my on the socials, but I did not see anything so far this morning when it comes to moves made by the Roccos. But anyway, confidence. How confident are we in this team? How confident are we in the Rockies right now? How confident are we in this team going forward? Well, it's a good question because as our commenter asked, how much are we buying in? I am buying in. It's tough. I don't know. I don't know how to answer the question because there are players that I do think the Rockies have some. I think the changes Ryan McMahon has made are legit. I think that he's still going to strike out a decent amount, but the improvements he's made and how he's looked throughout this year, mixed with the confidence that we've seen in the defense of late, I'm buying into Ryan McMahon. I'm buying into Ezekiel Tovar. I'm buying into Brenton Doyle. I'm warming up. I've been a big Brendan Rodgers guy, but things I still think things in terms of the trade market with him are going to be really interesting as we get there. I'm buying in that this team is better than their record. I really think that's overall what it is. I think the Rockies, if they don't blow some of the tough games that they have blown leads in, if they've hung on a couple of times, they're a little under 20 wins still. Not 30-win team. They're not top of the division. They're not any of that. I think that what this week has shown us is that the Rockies are better than I mean, you can't sit there and deny Cal Quantrill and Austin Gomber being good. I'm buying into to Cal Quantrill. Austin Gomber, man, he loves doing this to us because this is the story that we've seen from Austin Gomber before. We've seen great Austin Gomber. We've seen great stretches, and then we've seen some other issues. But I mean, we haven't. It seems to be the tandem of Quantrill and Gomber. I mean, during this stretch and in a good chunk of the season, especially if you factor in run support for those two guys seem to have really gelled with being 1-2 or the punch right there, right in the middle. So I think I'm more confident in Gomber, but I ain't fully buying in yet. Just like I think that same sentiment goes for Montero. We know what's possible. We're seeing the hot stretch right now over the winning streak, but we also have seen the bad stuff. We've also seen the bad signs. So it's for me to fully buy more of some of the question marks and concerns about the Rockies is they got to keep this going. If the win streak snaps, how do they respond? Do they respond by winning the series that it happens in, or do they respond by losing 4 in a row or losing 4 out of 5, like they often have done? So I'm not buying that the Rockies are fully back yet, but I'm buying that they're better. I'm buying that there's stuff to be interested in these young guys. I'm buying that that the Rockies got a couple of people that can really impress, and I'm buying the defense again. I didn't see it, but when they did that game against Texas, when you pull off basically 7 unreal plays, game-changing plays, that's how good the defense can be. And if the defense can continue to be as effective as it has been throughout this winning streak, the Rockies are going to win more games. The Rockies are going to be better than what they were in the beginning of the season. Why did the Arizona game go so bad on opening day? because the outfield couldn't make the close plays in the gap. They couldn't make the diving stops. They couldn't make the big plays. Now with this defense, I'm more confident in them making those big plays. Nobody turns double plays better than the Colorado Rockies. It also means they got the most traffic and they got to deal with turning double plays all the time. I understand that factor as well. But when you're looking for things to buy into for the Rockies, that's at the top of the list. I'm still very concerned. I'm still concerned about the offense, even with the improved output here. You know, again, they're going into San Francisco. They got LA looming. You know, they got other good teams. It's all about where they go from here. And for me, until I buy in, how they handle when the streak ends. As much as we don't want it to end, the winning streak will eventually end. And it's going to be the response from there. That's how much that I can gauge my buying in. But I think what the winning streak has really taught us is that this version of the Rockies is closer to what 2024 should have been so far. This version. I think, again, when you're the Rockies front office and the Rockies management, you can't sit there and ignore the relationships, the gel, the momentum, the energy, the look on the field, the results on the field when you're talking about putting this version of the team out there. And that includes the tough decisions and really tough situations on how to handle Kris Bryant. You know, and to be totally honest, when it comes to starting pitching, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal when Kyle Freeland gets in there. I think, that the Peter Lambert Ty Block situation, I think that'll be fine for Freeland to come back. But Block's even, been throwing the ball decently well there at the back end of that rotation. So it's there is stuff to buy into, but we don't need to buy in too much. We don't need to completely ignore how bad things have gone for the Rockies. But I do kind of just think the weirdness of baseball and being unlucky and bad momentum also played a factor. They're still the worst team in the NL West. They're still a basement dweller in terms of overall record, most likely. But this is a team that's better than the White Sox. This is a team that's better than, I'd say, the Angels. This is a team that's better than the Marlins, even though the Marlins swept the Rockies. But, I mean, think about that late-blown game and just kind of how gross that series was anyway. The Rockies are better than the worst team in baseball, but they're not one of the best teams in baseball. And I don't know if they've made themselves into the good category yet. But being better than what they were is good enough for me right now. And a 7-game win streak, including a series on the road, a sweep on the road, that doesn't happen all the time for the Rockies. And it's about building off of this momentum. It's about winning streaks being the norm. That's what really matters to me. And so with this winning streak, we've seen the Rockies make adjustments. And hopefully that continues throughout the season, and that continues for Kris Bryant as he gets back in the lineup. Because realistically, I don't have a great answer for the Kris Bryant thing, but we know what's going to happen. He's going to play. It's going to take playing time from other people, and he's got to perform. He's got to perform. The time is now. You know, as he opens up in that piece, I mean, I know how difficult it is. I mean, the pressure is on. I know it's speaking nothing that he doesn't know, but we got to see it. Just like we say it with the young guys, just like we say it with the pitchers, just like we say it with all the other Rockies, we got to see it. And we've been seeing good ball for the past week. Kris Bryant's got to be ready to contribute, got to get himself in that spot. And the Rockies have to help get him prepared and make sure that he's put in the best spot to succeed. All right, let's take a quick break there. And we'll wrap things up on today's show. Take a look at the pitching matchups here for tonight's ball game. And we'll get ready for the weekend here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. FanDuel got you covered for this busy sports time. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. We're not talking about the Denver Nuggets last night. That was bad. But Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Yes, that's any winning $5 bet is going to get you $150 in bonus bets at FanDuel. That's $150 to spend on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, folks, last segment here, wrapping things up, taking a look at the pitching matchups here. But let me know what your thoughts are on Kris Bryant. Let me know where your confidence level is. What are you buying into for the Rockies? Let me know in the comments section down below. And hey, you can go check out Locked On Sports Today if you're looking for some more coverage of the wide world of sports. Available on YouTube. Just search Locked On Sports Today. All right, tonight, Rockies taking on the Giants. Late one, 8:15 first pitch here. Ryan Feltner going up against Kyle Harrison. Kyle Harrison's 3-1 on the season here with a 3.42 ERA, a whip of 1.26 over 50 innings pitched. He has allowed 46 hits, 45 strikeouts to only 17 walks and 5 home runs. You know, what's interesting here, if Feltner wasn't dinged up in terms of, earned run average here, some kind of similar stories here between, or at least stat lines, when you're looking at Feltner and Harrison. Harrison obviously having the advantage, but Ryan Feltner, 5.20 ERA here, 1-3 with a whip of 1.42 over 45 innings pitched, giving up 52 hits and 40 strikeouts to 12 walks and 5 home runs. So same amount of home runs given up. Feltner's given up the same amount of home runs in 5 fewer innings, but Harrison now has gotten more walks in those 5 innings as well. So maybe something the Rockies, again, that discipline that they've been showing at the dish, if they can improve on that. But, I think going into this matchup, it's going to really test the Rockies in this win streak, really test the Rockies' ability to hit on the road, because San Francisco, tough place to play, and the Giants currently sitting at 12-10 at home here, and they just finished off a series against the Dodgers there, where didn't really go too well for them. The offense wasn't great for San Francisco, and that continues to be one of the trends here. They aren't a great hitting team here, batting .238 here with 39 home runs, an OBP of .305, a slugging of .366 there as a team. But again, when you're comparing it to the Rockies, even with the hot streak for the Rockies and the runs they're scoring, there's still only, the Rockies as a team are really only slightly better in some categories than San Francisco as a team when it comes to batting average. Rockies batting as a team .247. They got the 35 home runs and an OBP of .306 and a slugging of .381. So only behind the Giants by 4 in the home run department, virtually tied in on base percentage, and just barely slugging a little bit more than San Francisco. So this is still a Rockies team that isn't necessarily a dominant threat on offense either, but if they can keep the momentum and keep the energy alive, that's the best thing. The good times are going to keep rolling for the Rockies, or at least they're going to put themselves in a position for the good times to keep rolling if they keep scoring first. One of the big things in that Padres series, and one of the big things that we've been seeing through this winning streak, is the Rockies getting on the board first. Even if it means they fall behind or they got to fight back, when you scoring first, as opposed to what the Rockies did, 37, however many times. I don't care. I don't like to think about those all that much. As opposed to when they were going, or where they were trailing in literally every single game. Just, man, that brain chemistry, that momentum, everything matters when you're on the board first. That changes everything, and especially when you're on the board and you can help hang a 0 up there when the opponents go up to bat again. Then the mindset, the mental game of baseball, man. It's so fascinating. But gotta have the pitchers keep rolling against a weaker San Francisco offense, and the Rockies offense has got to stay hot against a team that has notoriously dominated them in an atmosphere that is very hard for them to play. So we'll see how it all shakes out. First pitch tonight, late for the Roccos. I believe it's 8:15 Mountain Time tonight. Folks, that is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for joining us and making us your first listen of the day. Really do appreciate it. Another great week here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. So big weekend ahead. We'll see how we'll see if the winning streak continues. We'll see if the winning ways continue for the Colorado Rockies. In the meantime, for your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB, or if you need all your playoff action covered, Locked On Nuggets and Locked On Avalanche got you covered. Because boy, oh boy, we got to respond to last night. There was a whole bunch of stress when it comes to those two teams in the playoffs. Of course, Locked On Broncos and Locked On Buffs got you covered for your football talk as well. I'm Paul Holden. I'm the host of the Locked On Rockies podcast. You can find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where your subscription is the easiest way to help the show grow. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.